like, comment, and subscribe.
Hey, it's Ashley, and I'm back with episode 3 of The Trunk. It's been a minute. That was my own fault. Kinda. I was doing stuff. But we're back. Last episode 2, it ended with NG and Seo Yeon having a little chit chat in Jia Wong's house. And she was being snarky and asking NG if she knew who she was. And NG told her, yeah, I remember you, bitch. But if you do want to check out the recap I did for that video, I will leave a insert so you can go check it out. But we're going to get into episode 3. So episode 3 starts out showing NG having dinner with a man, and he seems to have a similar attitude towards her that Jio-won had when she first met him, and he was acting kind of condescending and belittling about her job and kind of questioning her character. And you know what, girl, she got a backbone. She's not taking it sitting down, even though she is sitting. She lays it out for him that she really does not believe in love or marriage. She thinks it's all a scam, and if people really loved each other, why would they need to get into a contract? It's fake, and that she actually loathes it. And after she tells him that, she was like, I don't think this is gonna work out, so I'm gonna leave. And she like gets up to go, and he like, as soon as she takes like 2 steps, he's like, wait. He's like, I'm actually dying and 6 months, maybe 4, and he wants her to be his first and last wife. They share like a knowing glance, and between them you can kind of see that she understands where his pain is coming from and why he's lashing out at her when in his final moments and thinking about his life. He never really got to experience love, so he's kind of bitter about it. And we know what she's been through, so that's why she got into this job in the first place. So then we switch to Seo Yeon, my favorite villain, and she's asking NG, because they're back at the end of episode 2 when they're in the house, and she asks her again, she's like, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? And NG says, why does it matter how she heard about her? She knows who she is. And then she was like, yeah, I know who you are. I heard that you're so terrible that you caused one of my friends to commit suicide to get away from you. Seo Yeon's like, yeah, so you've heard about me. Do you really think I'm a bitch? And NG's like, I mean, I don't really think you're the cause behind my friend taking their own life. There's a lot of factors that go into somebody actually taking that final step. But she's like, but I do think you're a piece of shit, basically, and that you're a vindictive, selfish person. And Seo Yeon was like, yeah, I remember you too. But she doesn't tell her where or how. She just smiles like knowingly and kind of creepily at her. And Jeong comes home while he's pulling into the driveway. And when he's coming in, she's leaving, and she gets out of her car and comes up to his window, and he's like, oh, you came to our home. And she's kind of like taken aback, like, oh, you're saying our home now? And she's like, well, you know, we used to go to school with her, right? And then she just goes and gets back into her car to leave. And when he walks in the house, NG's like, yeah, she was here. We had a little talk. I gave her some tea. She was only here to talk about the light, like the chandelier. And Jeon's like, I didn't ask. And she was like, well, if it was me, I would want to know. So I'm telling. And when he sees her like getting ready to leave, he was like, oh, are you going to an appointment? I can come with you. And she's like, actually, my appointment's tomorrow. I'm out to run errands. And when he hears that, he just goes about his business. And then we see our girl Seo Yeon pulling over while she's heading back to home or work or wherever her ass is going. And she's pissed, like she's irritated. So she pulls out her phone and she calls somebody, and she's like, do you still do that thing? And I'm like, whatever. I don't know what that means, but it sounds creepy. It sounds like she's about to do some sneaky, underhanded shit. And then they go and show NG in front of the lake that it's like a lake. I'm going to say it. A large mass of water. It's not an ocean, not a pond, a lake. And it's usually where it's where they've been showing her kayaking in the morning, and where the investigation has been going with the police, where they found the trunk and they found the body. But she's there to meet one of her friends who also seems to be working for NM as well. And she tells her, I'm pregnant. And she's like kind of afraid for her. She's like, Does your husband know? Like the one she's in the contract with? Hope he doesn't. She doesn't seem to be as concerned as NG is. We don't know everything behind NM, but I'm pretty sure that's like a big red flag in that line of work when you're supposed to cut ties and have nothing to do with that person after it ends. But she seems to also be keeping tabs on NG's ex that left her, and she's just giving him an update of where he's been, and it seems like he's just backpacking through Europe and enjoying his life. And they go their separate ways, and NG's about to head back to the house or somewhere, and when she turns on the music, Jungwon's music comes on, which like is some kind of like industrial chaotic rock music that he's working on for his job. And let's just say NG's not impressed like whatsoever. And then we switch to Jungwon, who's relaxing at home listening to music when he gets a text from Seo Yeon, and she just wants to give him a little friendly reminder that she has one of his favorite records. And when he sends a picture to her, she calls him and she was like, "It seems like you seem to have forgotten, and I just wanted to give you like a little reminder." And she hangs up the phone and she sends him the picture, but down in the picture there's a picture of a sonogram, and we get a flashback of Seo Yeon having what seems to be like a pretty difficult pregnancy, and she's like trying to hurry up and run into a public bathroom to use it, and right when she's like pulling down her underwear to sit down, she pees on herself, and you can just see the frustration and embarrassment as this happens. She just sits down on the toilet and basically crashes out. She crashes out. And you feel sympathy for her. And you could just tell she's not happy about being pregnant whatsoever. And then it shows her sitting at a park bench, or just sitting at in a bench somewhere in public, smoking a cigarette while she is clearly visibly very pregnant, very pregnant. And she was like, and when she did call him, she's like, "Yeah, I have your album. I just wanted to," she was like going to return it to him. And then when that call ends, we get the recall from Jungwon's side, and he sees Seo Yeon pregnant, but she's laid out in the middle of the street with blood everywhere because she just got hit, and it's while she's pregnant. And it makes him spiral out, and he runs to take some pills, and NG sees him. She like kind of peeks in and sees what he's doing, but she doesn't say anything, and she just closes the door and goes about her business. The next day they're at the hospital, and NG's getting her stitches removed, and Jungwon, again, very highly uncomfortable with this whole scene of watching her getting her stitches out. And when NG sees him, she like reassures him. She's like, "Hey, it doesn't hurt. It's okay." And when they're on the elevator in the hospital to go to settle her bill, and they're in the elevator again, like in the first episode, when they showed him in the elevator with Seo Yeon, he's like trying to shrink himself, and he's kind of like cowering, and NG actually comforts him in a productive way, telling him to just think about the numbers, not think about what's actually happening at the moment. And it seems to actually help him. Like, you can visibly see that he's like calms down. And when he gets called to go pay the bill for the being seen at the hospital, he gets a phone call, and he answers, and he's like, "Hey, I can't talk right now, I'm busy, I'll call you later." And while they're on their way back to the house, NG looks at him while they're driving and says, "What are you doing on Tuesday? Let's get married." And he looked so thrown. He's like, "Huh?" Because he asked her something previously to that. He said he just wanted her to visibly, vocally tell him that she's in pain, because it's very uncomfortable for him to see it. He's never seen the process of somebody being injured in the process of them healing completely. You know, with his mom, she never got to go to the hospital. Whenever she got healed, it probably didn't look the best. And I think that's another reason why it makes him uncomfortable. But then we see Seo Yeon, and she's at work, and she's checking her recent calls, and she doesn't have any. And I'm like, good. Stu, be upset, bitch. And we figure out because there's like she was the one who called Ji-yeon-won when he was in the hospital, and he said, hey, I can't talk right now, and she's pissed that he never called her back, and you can see her getting pissed. She's like clenching her hand, and I'm like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and I'm like, and I every time she gets unsettled or she's pissed, I thoroughly enjoy it because it's what she deserves. And then we see Ji-yeon-won, and he's looking at this black suit that's laid out for him, and there's a note from Angie on it. She was like, the wedding is part of the manual, and he goes to his friend who works at owns the company that he signed the company over to, and he asks him to be a witness for his wedding. And we see, and that shows Seo Yeon and Ji-yeon-won are having like their weekly dinner date that they've had, and he doesn't seem as distraught and uncomfortable like we seen him in the first episode, where he just seems like he's always in the midst of a crash out. And she's upset again, which, like I said earlier, I thoroughly enjoy. And she's mostly upset because he's showing so much concern about NG, because she's like, oh, did you take her to her appointment? How did it go? And he's like, yeah, I took her. And like right when he said that, she gives the album to him, and the ultrasound falls out, and he takes a look at it, and he's like, he tells her she's so cruel to do that to him, which she is. And when he looks at it, he notices that there's pills attached to the back of the sonogram or ultrasound, and she was like, you can take them or you can't, they're just there for you to decide. And you know she's doing that to trigger him. And after she says that, he looks up at her and he's like, I'm getting married tomorrow. And it cuts to the wedding, and we see NG getting ready, and her wedding dress is simple, but it looks really good on her, and I like it. Like, I really like it. And we see Ji-yeon-won getting ready, and he's getting frustrated because he can't tie his bow tie, and NG comes over and does it for him, and he tells her like she's good at a lot of things, and she said like, yeah, growing up her grandma said that she's really good at detail, and she figured she'd always be the person who would have to handle the hard stuff, and that she'd probably always have to would always lead a miserable life. Ji-yeon-won's like, do you believe that? And she's like, no. Like, you know, she's like being honest with him and telling about giving him like little pieces of her life that he wants to know about, but she can't really tell him. So you can see like she like threw the net out and be like, here's some bait, but then she like took it back so he doesn't think about it too much. Again, we see Seo Yeon but this time she's at a meeting at work, and she gets a text from Ji-yeon-won. We didn't see him send this text, but it says, just say the word and I'll call it off. And she does like this little smirk because she's happy that, okay, he's still thinking about me. Like, girl, calm down. Even though the wedding hall is gorgeous, like the scenery behind them in the hall is like exquisite, like it's so pretty. But you know who's marrying them? Her boss that she was sat and talked to, the one she met after she got she called off her engagement and everything. She's the one who marries them. Was it a real ceremony? No, it was not. It was totally business. At the end, they signed a contract. There was no exchanging rings and kissing. They signed their contract and they're married. And his friend who was there as the witness was like, these are not like little, oh, please don't do this at the wedding. He's like, these are guidelines, these are rules. And he's just thinking about like how ridiculous it is. But yeah, that's how their wedding went. It was gorgeous, but it wasn't even a real ceremony. They just dressed up, they put on the costumes, signed the contract, and it was over. Later that night, NG's watching soccer when Ji-yeon-won comes to join her, and he brings beer and he hands one to her. And again, he tries to get some information out of her about what she did before this, and when she doesn't give him what he wants, he tries to belittle her again, like the guy at the beginning of the episode. And again, she swiftly puts him in his place, and after that little roast, he was like, well, I'm going to bed. Like, yeah, take your ass to bed. Quit acting like you're better than her. She was like, isn't it lonely? And he was like, isn't that why people get in relationship, is because they're lonely? And even when they are with somebody, they're still just as lonely. And when she told him that he was like, well, I'm done, I'm gonna go to bed. Because basically she was talking about him and his ex-wife, because that's the only reason he's still attached to her, is because he didn't want to be lonely. It's pretty obvious. She only liked having him around because she likes somebody chasing her like a little puppy dog. in her treating them however she feels that day. Before he heads to bed, John Juan takes out the ultrasound again and he stares at the pills on the back. He doesn't take them, he puts them back down, but he does end up falling asleep. But he has a nightmare where he thinks he's getting engulfed in water, and he tries to scream, and he like wakes up in a panic, and he goes to grab the pills, the blue ones that were on the ultrasound, and he stops himself, and he gets up and he goes into the bathroom to the medicine cabinet and takes something else. Like he takes another one of the billions of pills he has in there. And when he goes to lay back down, he hears Angie's voice saying, "Were you drowning?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's just the usual." And she tells him, "The waves can't get you from here. You'll be safe." And he falls asleep, no problem. And then when he wakes up the next morning, he like looks over, but the bed's made and he's by himself. And when they're eating breakfast together, he starts to ask her if she was there, and she was like, "Yeah, I was. Sleeping in the same room is part of protocol." And he is livid. He was so pissed. She was like, "The only time it doesn't happen where we sleep in the same room is if there's a disease, like if somebody has an STD. John Juan's like, "No, I can't do this anymore. Call my ex-wife and tell her, how long do I have to do this before we can stop? Just cut the shit. I'm over it." He's like, "I'm done." And she's like, "Okay, we can try and figure something out." And he shoulder checks her while he leaves to go to work. And while he's leaving for work, he turns on the music and he realizes that Angie, her disc or her flash drive is still in the car, and it's playing her music, and you can hear her laughing and giggling and talking to another man. And it seems like she kind of may have done it on purpose, because he keeps asking her. He says he wants to know more about what she did before she started working here, and this seems to be like another little breadcrumb, like, "Hey, here, take that, do what you will with it." Because it seems like if he asks the right questions in the right way, she can answer. It's like some way for her to get around the contract that she has, like the guidelines they have with NM. But I don't know, that's just me, that's how I see it. And he gets a text from his ex-wife letting him know that the lights are coming next week, and it shows Angie back at the house, and she's going through the medicine cabinet because she's seen that's where he went last night. And she takes pictures and gets samples. Like, she takes pictures of all the bottles, the labels, and takes samples of all the drugs that he keeps in there. And she calls somebody and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to send these to you. Can you check them out and make sure they're what is said on the labels?" And then she goes over to her ex's place where she sees that Ajima again. She's there talking shit, running her mouth as usual. And when Angie leaves, again, she pulls out her phone to call somebody, but we don't know who it is. I'm like, suspicious. I clocked it already. Who are you? But we see the ladies, they're gathered at the tea house where CEO Yeon was in the previous episode, where that lady is telling her, stop playing games, stop treating Jeon Won the way that she is. But they're all there and they're taking a class on how to do flowers for cake decorating. And everyone there seems to be impressed with the instructor, except for CEO Yeon, who just makes a comment like, "Oh, it's just little tricks. It's nothing special. They're not doing anything that's so mind-blowing." And you see the guy like look over at her like, "Yeah, I got you." Mind you, this is the same psycho that Angie said has been stalking her for several years, and he just got released from a mental institute. But Meng Kyung, which is Jeon Won's friend that owns the company with them, his wife, she asked Seo Yeon if she's like, "Hey, do you know if I can like come over and see the new chandelier?" She's like, "I know it's gonna be like something that I could never see in my life, and I think it would be really cool." And she tells her, "Well, I can't really say it's okay because she's not married to him anymore." And then it cuts to the police current time, and they're just at the lake trying to find some kind of evidence of what happened there. And the one detective is like, "This lake is too clean." He's like, "It looks like somebody already scrubbed for evidence, like collected anything that they could have found that could have been useful for them to try and figure out what happened here." And while he's talking to his partner gets a phone call saying, "Hey, we found out who the owner of the trunk is, and we get more into that interrogation scene with Jong-won. That was towards the end of the first episode, and they ask him whose trunk it is, and he was like, it's my wife's. And the detective's like, yeah, which one? Your current wife or your ex-wife's? And we don't get an answer, unfortunately, because it goes back to the house, and it's the day the chandelier is getting installed, and NG, while she's there with Seo Yeon, and they're like overseeing it getting installed and the old one getting taken out, NG gets a text from her friend that she met at the lake telling her, hey, it looks like he's looking to buy a place and settle down in Budapest. You see her like pull up a map of Budapest, and she's just like looking at it. And while she's out on like the patio, Seong Yeon comes out and she asks her, she's like, hey, what do you want me to do with the old chandelier? And she's like, get rid of it. And she's like, do you know how valuable this is? And what an impact it makes on the art world? And Seo Yeon's like, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't want it to be anywhere near Jeon-won because it causes him so much pain. And Seo Yeon's like, okay, I'll get rid of it. And as soon as she hears her taking up for Jeon-won, she's like, so you want to have like a couples dinner with me and my husband and you and Jeon-won? And NG kind of caught off guard. She agrees with her. I know it was begrudgingly, but she doesn't facially show that she didn't want this to happen, but she didn't want this to happen. And Min Kyung does show up, and she comes with a housewarming gift, or like a gift, and it looks like cupcakes. And when NG sees the flowers, it seems like she kind of knows who it was that created them. And you see Seo Yeon in the back kind of looking at her face when she sees them, and it's like, does she know? Does Seo Yeon know that this guy is NG's stalker, and she's leaving hints and ways for him to find her? Does she know how dangerous this guy is, like, this whole time? Does she know? Another question that I have, and Min Kyung seems like she's totally unaware if this is all the moving parts going on. She's totally unaware. She's riding in the car with Seo Yeon back to wherever they're going, and she's just singing her praises about NG and how awesome and cool and sophisticated she is. And when Jeon-won gets home, NG tells him, she's like, hey, we got dinner plans, and he is visibly upset. He's like, are you guys friends? He's like, no. She's like, no, I only did it out of obligation because she helped with that shitty chandelier. And she asked, when they go to bed that night, they have double beds now. It's not one single bed. And that seems like the best solution because he doesn't seem upset anymore. While they are laying in bed, he does ask her what she did before this, and she tells him she used to be a dance instructor. And he asks her, hey, did you teach milonga, which is like a certain, I think it's like a derivative, the tango, or a certain kind of Spanish dance style, kind of like the tango, because he found her, he listened to a recording in the car. He says he found it this morning, and he also asks her, like, what else does she do? What does she do in the morning when she leaves? And she's like, oh, I go and exercise and I go kayaking. She's like, I like it because it feels like I'm my own little island, I have my thoughts and everything, and it helps me clear my mind. We get the night of the dinner party. Unfortunately, Seo Yeon, acting like it's her house still, is in their bedroom, and she's looking at the double beds, and she's like grinning, like she's happy, like, great, they're not getting close. This is exactly what I want to happen. This is perfect. And Jeon-won finds her, and he's like, what are you doing in our bedroom? And she's like, oh, I just want to see the new newlyweds bedroom. Like, yeah, sure. Whatever you say, girly. NG sees Seo Yeon's current husband. He's out on the patio area, and she goes up to him, and she's like, before she talks to him, we see a flashback, and it seems like he used to be a security guard, and something happened that frightened him a lot because he seems terrified. And she asks him, like, aren't you uncomfortable? And he's like, why? Because I'm in my current wife's ex-husband's house. He was like, it's fine. And while they're eating dinner, it is so quiet, so uncomfortable, so awkward. It's like everybody's just sizing each other up while they're eating, especially the two people that nobody wants to be there. Seo Yeon laughs when she sees the Capri salad because it's tomatoes and mozzarella, and she's like, I never would have been able to get away with making something like that. And she's like, well, when I heard it's your favorite, I just had to do it. And she's like, oh, do you not like tomatoes either? She's like, no, I don't. And she's like, oh, well, aren't you two just like two peas in a pod? Is the attitude she has, and then she stands up and goes and walks into their kitchen, kind of like saying, yeah, it's still like the way I had it when I lived here, and trying to make her presence known and being overbearing and lording over them. And she comes back with the napkin holder, and then she has the nerve to bend over and wipe Jungwon's mouth before she comes to sit back down. And he gets so comfortable. He like moves away so fast when she does it because you weren't even expecting it. I'm like, what the fuck? This cuckoo, okay? Cuckoo, crazy. And then after that, her current husband just starts talking shit about Jungwon, saying, oh, you guys are only married for 2 years. I guess it doesn't matter how long you guys are, or how long you guys have known each other. When you don't meet the right person, it doesn't matter. And NG counters back like, well, how long did you two know each other before you got married? And Seo Yeon's like, that doesn't matter because we have so much chemistry. And they're like, yeah, we've seen how much chemistry you guys have between each other in the previous episodes. And then she's like, isn't that the same for you two? And they just, both of them, Seo Yeon and G.O., that's her current husband, they just sound desperate and insecure, and it's so annoying and uncomfortable to watch. It's just like, secondhand embarrassment. Like, why are you trying so hard? These two people could give two shits about y'all. And I'm not sure about Jungwon completely giving no shits about y'all. But when they're setting up for dessert, the two husbands are like getting everything set up, and he's bragging again, the current husband. And I'm like, oh, dude, shut the hell up. And he's like, yeah, I'm so handsome, and I'm young, and I'm nice, and I'm tall. And Jungwon just looks at him, and he's like, dude, what is your problem? What are you doing? And he's like, well, are you in love with NG? And he doesn't answer. But he doesn't really let him. He's like, well, I'm in love with Seo Yeon. Jungwon's like, just like, I think he just doesn't know what to say. And while they're all sitting together in the living room, enjoying dessert, they go ahead and try to talk about how they get in the mood. They're like, yeah, we like to have a few glasses of wine before, we go to the bedroom. And NG grabs Jungwon's hand because he seems like he's getting irritated and like ready to like tell them to get the hell out. And she's like, oh, well, we're a beer couple. We just need a beer and we're good. Seo Yeon looks up at the new chandelier and she's like, I actually prefer the old one. Don't you, Jungwon? And again, he becomes visibly uncomfortable. And then she goes, she's like, you're just so immature, holding on to the past. And I'm like, bitch, look at you. You can't even talk. And then I was like, that's called unresolved trauma. You've known him for how long? So you knew exactly everything that his dad did to his mom. You know his ass needs actual therapy instead of you trying to force feed him all these damn pills. But then after she says that, she looks at NG, expecting her to agree, and she eviscerates her, and I loved it. And she was like, I should have hauled that piece of garbage to the fucking junkyard, and don't try to minimize his pain. And then she was like, don't you have old wounds of your own that haven't healed? And everybody shuts the hell up. And I was like, ooh. Because we already seen earlier in the episode, obviously she has tons of unresolved trauma herself, especially revolving around her being pregnant. So bitch, who are you to tell somebody to get over their previous hurt. G.O., her current husband, he was like, I guess it's time to call it a night. And I'm like, yeah, get the fuck out. Nobody wants you there. And while NG's cleaning up, Jingwon comes over and he starts to help her dry the dishes. And he asks her if she had seen his flash drive because it has his work music on it, because he doesn't like using Bluetooth because of the security around it. That's why he likes to use a flash drive. And she's like, I also like to use a flash drive. And he asks her if she dances tango, and he's like, that's kind of hard to picture. I don't feel like that would be something that I don't think that's something that you would be good at. And she was like, actually, if you see my skill, you would be blown away. And you see him just like get up and wander away. And he goes into the living room and he turns on the same music that she had playing in the car. And he was like, why don't you show me? And I was like, look at him trying to be flirty and cute. I think this is when she put them in their places at dessert. I think that's when he kind of was like, I think I got feelings. I feel like I can open up to her. And I was like, yes, they're growing closer. And after she gets done drying off her dish, she puts it down and she goes over to him and she grabs him and she positions him. And he's like, no, what are you doing? And I'm like, bro, it's the tango. You don't do that by yourself. And they have like this really cute scene where she tries to teach him how to dance, and he keeps stepping on her feet and she keeps like falling. There's a part where it happens again and she falls into him and she starts to say something and he like interrupts her by kissing her. And I'm like, oh, look at him trying to put the moves on her. And they break away from each other and he kisses her for real this time, like deep kiss. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Cut to Seo Yeon sitting in front of a monitor watching the whole scene. This bitch done replaced the old chandelier that his dad had with the cameras with her own, so she can do the same thing his dad did to his mom to him. Yeah, I was like, this loony bin psycho bitch. I want to jump through the screen. Every time I see her, I want to jump through the screen, honestly. And then it cuts back to NG and Jongwon, and they separate and they look at each other, and then the episode ends. Yeah. I do want to say Min Kyung, I don't really talk about her because they just show like little snippets of her throughout each episode that doesn't really amount to too much. But she is the part of the different dynamics they have of relationships. She's the married relationship where they've been together for a long time and she just seems miserable. I think there's that saying where people are like, she's a single wife, like she's married but she's single because she literally does everything. In one of the episodes, the previous episodes, you see her driving her husband and kids to work, like driving him to work and her kids to school. And then in this episode, you see her at home getting her kids ready for school, and she's picking up some drink they had and some snacks. She's told them multiple times not to eat in the bedroom, and they just knock the juice into her and it spills all over her. They don't apologize. They don't say nothing. They just keep going into the bathroom, and her husband comes over, doesn't try to help. He just comes over to the bedroom door and he's like, hey, honey, are you okay? She's basically like, no. She's like, I want my old life back. You see that she just seems lonely and she wants more girlfriends so she can be her own person and not just a mom. You know, she wants to be a full person, and it's kind of sad. But this episode was really good. You see the shift in dynamics between Jongwon and NG, where they're actually starting to have an attraction towards each other. You see Seo Yeon is visibly uncomfortable because however she thought this was going to play out with him getting married is not working out how she thought it would. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because it's not working out how she thought it was, she thinks she needs to install these cameras to keep an eye on him. Like, why did you divorce him if you're just gonna monitor him like that? I don't get her thought process at all. If somebody does, please let me know, other than she's got issues. If there's a name for it, please tell me, because I can't wrap my head around it. She's obsessed and it's scary. I did feel sympathy towards her when you seen how bad she struggled with her pregnancy, and how it seems like her as a person, it doesn't seem like she wants to get pregnant at all. She probably just did it because Jung-won wanted it, because at no point from what we've seen she seemed happy with it at all. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, with a little thumbs up. Leave a comment on your thoughts on this episode, your theories. Subscribe if you've been liking my content, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.